All right, let's call the meeting for roll call.
Mayor Reese.
Here.
Councilmember Ross. Here. Nelson. Here. Gilbertson. Here. Gardner. Here. Baggerly. Here. Davis. Here. Butterfield. Here. Shoulders. Here. All present.
Let's stand for the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Right, we're here the pledge. Yeah.
Before you start, your ears.
Yep.
We'd like to read the opening of for the Egypt people.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can read it. Mr. Mayor and members of the council, tonight as we remember that it is Indigenous Day, we acknowledge that the land on which we gather is the traditional and ancestral territory of the Dakota and Ojibwe people. We recognize the historical and cultural significance of this land and honor the indigenous communities who have lived, worked, and thrived here for generations. Now is the time for each one of us to stand as allies for the human rights of every person. Supporting Indigenous Peoples Day is one of the ways to do that. So today, October 13, 2025, we celebrate the resilience, diversity, and contributions of our neighbors who belong to the Native American community. Let's recommit to respecting tribal sovereignty, self-determination, and the rich heritage of Indigenous people who we call our neighbors as well. May we work together towards a bright future, one that values and honors the human rights of every person.
Thank you, Paul. We're here for the budget, 2026 budget review. Who's my calling that? Leslie?
We're going to start with Tom,
Okay.
so that he can review where we were at and a couple scenarios that we've come up with.
Also, would you want me to stand up front or would it sit back here? I guess what works best for you. Okay. So before you tonight, enclosed in your packet, there are 5 pages. The first being the cover sheet. So the first I'd like to draw your attention to is the 2026 preliminary budget, the first page table on it. And just to remind you, this is just the same as that passed at the September meeting of the preliminary budget. The operating and the biggest difference here is that the CIP transfer over 2025 adopted budget. I guess I want to maybe step back one step here. Tonight, I guess there are 3 main objectives, and I understand it's a work session. And I want to respect that. I do not want to call for action, but I would like a good conversation and a consensus so staff knows a little bit more clear direction as to what to bring for the final budget presentation in December and the Truth and Taxation meeting. So the operating budget and the levy for 2026, kind of paired with that would be the capital improvement plan for 2026. And then the third item being the library roof, the topic that we have spoken about for the replacement scheduled for next year. So back to the first table there is the 15.02% levy increase over 2025 that was adopted. Once again, primarily the capital plan is a significant increase from $485,416 to $1.1 million. The levy increase is just over $1.671 million, or a tax rate of about 3.6% over 2025 adopted. So since then, we have met with council on, or had conversations among staff, and we have come up with some slight changes in a couple different levy scenarios, which would be on the next page, levy scenario number 1. There is a little bit of increased revenue that we added in there from the planning and development department. and that is primarily the admin services that they work for Atwater, New London, and the city of Candy, Ohio for services through their department for building official work. There are also decreased expenses of $178,000 amongst various departments. This does remain the $1.1 million CIP dollar levy amount in there. So that would go down to 12.96% or $1.443 million increase. The tax rate would be about 2.5% increase. The levy scenario 2, which would be the next sheet in your packet tonight, would include those same changes as scenario number 1, but then also decreasing the capital improvement plan from $1.1 million down to $690,000. And that would be a $1.033 million increase, or about a 9.28% levy increase, but the tax rate itself would be just over 0.5%. One thing I do want to draw out on that, the 690 is a significant decrease, but there are also other proposed capital improvement plan items, such as the City Hall would be $185,000 in City Hall capital improvement program upgrades for the elevator and some fire panels. So we're just under $1 million total CIP. So we're still getting some positive work done, even with the 690. And then on the bottom of all the sheets is the tax impact, what it would look like. The very back page would be the capital improvement program. Staff has identified projects that they would like to see done. We also did go over this with the mayor prior to the preliminary budget. The projects are highlighted there, and then there's 2 columns on the right-hand side, the $1.1 million column and the $690,000 column. You'll see that a couple of them have been decreased in funding and a couple of them have been removed. There are some dollars sitting in a capital improvement fund that were allocated in 2025, such as the Public Works Reserve line of $137,000. We allocated that to go towards a future plow truck, and we're proposing to use that. And we also have the Blue Line Reserve, which was a project from 2022, where that project was reallocated at the Blue Line or Civic Center Arena for a roofing project. And we're also proposing to use that money as well. So I would open up for any comments or questions, but I do want to, there are 3 main objectives staff would like tonight is the direction on the operating budget levy, the capital improvement program, and then also the library roof, which we would propose to reallocate money in our capital improvement program to pay our portion of the library roof replacement.
Did I miss it, or did you mention the snow goal?
The snow goal, yes, Mr. Mayor, that's a good question. That is on both of the capital improvement program lists. If we went with the $1.1 million, it would be fully funded. If we went with the $690,000 program, it would be roughly half funded for a future purchase.
But we've got 245 on the proposed capital improvement program.
Yep.
At the 1.1 million funding. If we only fund the 690,000, then it would go down to 120,000 to be funded, the balance in 2027.
Yeah.
Mayor, if we use that 137 from Public Works Reserve, that's coming out of the plow truck? No. Where's that coming from?
So the 2025 capital improvement program, there is $485,000 that was allocated, and $137,000 was set aside for Public Works to go towards a future truck. And this would be using those funds towards that truck listed on line or 135.
That's what I was.
Yeah, so we're using it. There'd be a total of 983,000.
Oh, I got it. Okay. Thank you. Another question, did we talk about only doing 2 police cars? I see there's 3 still on. Well, not under 693.
You did old squad number 28 of those.
There was conversation about only 2,
Yes,
but at 690, we could fund 3.
And I do believe Chief Holm is getting hotspot. Well, he'll be back.
Squad 28 is a 2018.
About the other 3.
10, 18, and 20.
if we only funded 2 though, couldn't we use some of that money for,
17s or 18s.
I thought the discussion had been that we could get 5 or 2.
That's what we did last year. We dropped them down. Last year we went from what, 3 or 4 to 2?
4 to
4 to
2.
2. And kind of prolong it.
Right.
They're already 8 years old.
Get out of mind. But not enough. Right. I'm just wondering if there's other items, maybe we can wait for Chief to get back.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Yep. What about the traffic signals? That's something we need to have done?
Yes, it is something we need to have done. Is
So we don't.
we have not been doing the upgrades, so it's the mechanical systems and the computer systems within the lights that this would cover. And I don't think we've funded any of them yet. And we have, I don't have my book in front of me. Kyle, do you know how many we have?
About 1 a year for the next 15 years.
Yes.
Because my concern is every time we don't fund something, then we have next year to talk about we funded or not funded. You know, just keep pushing things down the road. Things aren't getting better. If we don't do it, and I'm going to agree with Vicki on it, but if we don't do it, are they repairable? Or didn't we have a situation where we had one that went down that wasn't repairable?
It took time to get the replacement parts here.
But you can still get parts for them?
Yeah. Took time though. But at some point in time, yes, we're gonna have to upgrade the systems themselves. So that would be this process. And so over the last 3 years, we started at a CIP of 0 because before that council was using reserves to fund the CIP. But we have steadily each year increased our CIP. So next year there would be an increase from 485,000 to 690,000. 2027, we would expect that would then be over $707,000 in 2027 to, maybe close to 800,000 depending on the growth. So, but every year we're trying to build that CIP back into the budget that wasn't being funded before.
So, and we wanted to keep that tax rate where it is in scenario 2, just over 0.5% increase the tax rate. We wanted to bring the traffic savings back and CIP. We could find 110,000 from the general fund budget. And that would pull it out, yes. We got 110,000 from the general fund.
What would you like to cut?
Well, there's figures on there right now of salary and benefits going down 178,000.
Yes.
So that's already built into the scenario
1 and 2.
1 and 2.
Yes.
So if we were to do what Justin was talking about, we would need how much more to come out of the budget for salary and benefits?
110,000.
Only benefits 65% of the government.
No, I know.
Can you tell us how you cut 178K on salary?
Sure. So there are two positions where we had staff turnover. The new hire was hired at farther back on the scale. So that includes the salary fringe benefits that go along with it. And then this also does include not funding one position is unfilled.
What position?
What's that?
What position?
In the police department.
Okay, that's what we had talked about, though, that it still gave them room that if they can get the hires done this year, chances are they can't get to that number, taking one away, right?
Of the four, yes.
Of the four, okay.
But have it like, isn't like in the past, I feel like the answer to this has been that you can cut those numbers back. They won't be able to hire it anyway, but that means that existing officers are going to be working overtime to fill that gap, and overtime pay is the equivalent of that fourth salary.
Well,
Right,
we have had these positions open for a long time, several years.
Mhm.
And the experience is that we've been able to hire about two a year. And right now, we do not have any officers in the pipeline to even hire. So as far as January 1st, probably not. And probably not until May. So you really almost have a half year too that you would not even have at least, and maybe you wouldn't even get two hired in May. So then they would start till June. So, but if we do have in the budget right now, 3.
Right. But my
Or we have
understanding,
4 actually.
I get all of that, but my understanding is because we're not going to be able to hire any new officers for 6 months. In theory, just following the conversation.
Yep.
That means we're going to have to pay overtime to the current officers to make sure that we can cover.
And we'd be paying overtime for the officers to cover, because even though we get them hired, it takes
Training.
months for training, and so they can't even be out on their own yet for another 3 months, 3 to 4 months before they're fully trained.
So for instance, where are we year to date then on that budget line for the police department? Because we're running 4 behind. Right.
Yeah, if we're budgeted for 4 people we don't have, we should be way ahead.
Well, also, we don't budget for retirees or for people leaving. And so when we have to pay them out their vacation, and that's not a part of the budget. It's accrued, that's not part of the expense side. It's in the budget. Balance sheet.
Liability, right?
Okay, if somebody retires, well, if they retire in May, 3 months worth of, are we paying out? We budget for the whole year. Paying 7 months of salary when they retire.
It's a maximum of 400 hours.
That's 3 months. Just over 3 months. It's under 3
And
months.
then so that's just their vacation time, and then their sick time. Well, then their sick time is,
Either way, we should be way ahead of that budget line. Are we?
We're at 70% year to date right now on the salary alone.
pretty much on track.
The problem. We budget for 4 people we don't have, and we're right at budget.
And we had how many people leave that we paid out?
Yeah, that's an overtime.
Well, I just seen the report on Minneapolis with their police department. One person's $500,000 this year salary due to overtime. So I don't know. We got a position where we would be in a situation where we don't have funds.
So if they were successful in hiring 3 people, which is what we have in the budget right now, right?
We actually have all 4 in the budget right now. At
We
the
still have
15
the 4th.
At the 15.2, which is preliminary, we have all 4 in the budget.
No, what you're talking about
Scenario 2, yes, we have 3 in the budget.
we have 3 in the budget. That's where I was going. So if it gets to May and they have hired 3 and they have the opportunity to hire 4, could we not come back and look at what can we do within our budget? You know, if other people leave, other people leave, yes, you can hire someone. We'll find the money, go ahead. If they're going to hire someone in May, it might be October or November before they actually get, which we would only have to worry about the rest of the year, right? So we could take that chance that if we're lucky enough to hire the three, we could then go back and hire.
Just saying that based on my understanding previously, budget scenario. Is again the overtime aspect. Like I think if you want to save money with with personnel at the PE, not only do you have to remove an officer from the budget, but you didn't have to, reduce the amount of officers that you want on the streets. Otherwise, that overtime is going to come in and it's going to drive up the personnel costs.
So how much overtime do we have just for doing other community kinds of activities when we have events and those types of things?
They don't have. You consider we look at that
Just for overtime on
events. So
Rock and Robins.
like Rock and Robins.
Well, not just Rock and Robins, but
No, welcoming week.
there's something like it seems like there's something on a regular basis, which is good for the community. But I'm just curious with how much staff time, because we end up the same thing with Public Works having to do, Saturdays and Sundays and, setting up and taking down. And so
any of the events, like if we do things for the school, that's billed overtime. If we do any of our TZD stuff, that's all billed overtime through the state reimbursed.
but we don't collect anything from the school, or we don't.
Yes.
We collect from the school.
Yes,
Okay.
and it comes back into the general.
Do we collect enough to consider it to pay overtime?
Yeah, it's
Actually whatever it is.
$70.
Okay,
Is what
That's
we're
good to
going
know.
out on for all the overtime.
To cover the pension and benefits.
no.
Can we
Could we go higher with it?
bill for the pension and benefits?
Yeah, that's a set number that the council had came up with on the billing part is my understanding, about 70. So that's something now, but you can just it here. It needs to go higher.
When was the last time that's changed?
When did we do that?
That's part of the fee schedule. So that's reviewed annually. So the first meeting of the year. So make a note for that to be reviewed.
Do you know when it was changed though?
Last year, everything.
Well, I get that we
Changed the bidding. I'm not sure when that specific fee was last considered.
So everything that's in the salary and benefit reduction is police. There's nothing else in police else.
There,
Well, there are other two departments that were affected in that 78,000 by attrition from new hires at a lower salary rate.
So we're still hiring. We're not hiring.
Correct.
It's just that they've been hired at a lower rate than the person who left.
it's like a really passive way to budget. I think it's can't do anything hard. We're just saying, okay, if they leave, we won't go back up with a lower paid employee and we're not at basic. Or we might just not fill a position. That seems super passive. Instead of saying, probably don't need to do this. Here's where we could potentially cut something. 'Cause right now we haven't cut anything. We've done Zippo.
I feel like that's where the change has to come. Like, I agree with what Vicky said earlier about like when we're cutting from CIP, we're just pushing it to next year and we're not making cuts. We're just kicking the can down the road.
Here's something. How many snowplows do we have?
Okay.
How many snowplows do we have? 11. How many do we need?
11,
Why?
135 miles.
That's a nice number, but it means nothing.
Well, how fast do you want the city opened?
Well, that's my question. Does it need to be open in 4 hours? Do the main roads need to be open in a half hour? Does it need to be open in 4 hours and 20 minutes? If we went from 11 to 10, what's the impact of that? Those are the questions we should be asking. Would anybody in the city notice if we went from 11 snowplows to 10?
It also reduces your overtime for snow events. I wonder.
If we did emergency ban on parking on the streets, could they get it done easier than having to come back 2 or 3 times?
Well, we do that downtown, but
No, I know, but you don't do it. You don't do it on other streets where communities do that.
We take it a step further and say, we have 11 snowplow drivers. What if we only had 10? Right? And that flows down through insurance, benefit, retirement, everything. Trying to figure out a way to cut money out of the budget to save people on the property tax. Those are the questions you guys should be asking. Instead of just saying, we'll just hire a less expensive employee.
But we don't know that those questions haven't been asked.
They didn't present anything like that. People.
I hear you. There. We don't know. They haven't gone through that analysis.
Have you?
so that we have. Because I guess we know that right now we're opening the streets when we need to. Our guys are.
No, we're open when we want to.
No, we open them. We try to minimize overtime. Our staff will come in at midnight if needed.
I'm not saying they're not
for 8
hurting,
hours.
Leslie. Not. But do we need to open in 4 hours, or do we want to open them in 4 hours?
Well, I think the school would like us to have them open in 4 hours.
What do we got? 135 miles?
135 miles.
That's over 11 miles per snowplow. Well, do we get bus routes from the bus department so we know exactly which roads need to be done? Because the buses, we don't pick up kids on every route. It's like a 3-block radius.
Well, there's a technique to plowing snow. So when you have a route, you don't take any left-hand turns, you take all right-hand turns. There's a technique, and then they start at certain points so that they all know which way everybody is going. Because you plow snow to the right, plow it to the left. And then with the cul-de-sacs, it takes more time.
I live on one.
Because it takes.
And my driveway 7 feet long, it needs to be every single time they plow my road.
So.
On the other side of the 135, of course, when you take that easy math, that's 13.5 miles. If you go to 10.
And depending on the snowfall.
Yeah.
Takes less or more time. We have an airport to open up. We have to get that opened up. Parking lots are not done.
I'm not
until the
disputing
streets are
any
done.
of what you're saying
Yeah.
at all.
The question is, I guess, if we were to go to 10 plows, how badly would the city feel the effects of that? The negative impact would that have?
Well, I would say.
That's what I think he's asking.
And it depends on the year, right?
Yeah, well, right, but in any given snow event,
Yeah.
are 10 plows going to take an hour longer to clear the roads as opposed to 11? Or 2 hours long? I don't know what the answer is.
Just asking a question. It's $290,000 line item. That's more than what the whole proposal was. That's the official way to get your occupancy.
What effect would that have on overtime pay?
Depends on snow, right? Depends on
Yeah, code plans,
Yeah.
So according to AI, because it's smarter than I can't do that.
Not true.
If it takes 4 hours, which I'm not sure where that number came from, that's a legit number.
That's what
Okay, that's just
I've always been told super proud of you in 4 hours. So
it would take 4 hours and 24 minutes. The 10 pows. If 11 pows can do 135 miles in 4 hours, 10 pows can do 135 miles in 4 hours and 20.
that's assuming that the routes all.
they're equally distributed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
Because taking one plow away would definitely affect the roads.
Sure. And if a plow breaks down,
Right.
now,
So much. Piece of equipment you have to maintain.
Well,
Because the cost of the plow isn't $290,000. It's way more than that. That's probably just the truck, I would guess, right?
That's a chassis to plow the box.
Because the plow and everything.
So if we're gonna do this, then we can fit the area funding together. We're just not going to plow until the rest of
I
it.
guess you would. I don't think you would want to pick that area. I think you'd leave that up to Public Works.
My point is that, so people go to work, and they go downtown, and the streets aren't clear. And so you have more issues there, or
Maybe we should get more plow.
I think there's a balance there. Or let's not do the north side, and let's just do the south side, because there's more people who move around there than the north
I
side.
think we can work two birds.
Well, see, that's the point. Everybody's places. I'm being sarcastic
I know,
here
so am I.
in
I
that.
don't think 24 minutes is but you guys know what your own examples. That's one example that I thought of that like it's more than it's double $170,000 that I'm all in favor of. But yeah, one less no problems. One question I have. How much would that be?
What is the age of snow plow that they, because I don't have my CFO in front of me. How long have we put off that snow plow?
3 years, 3.
Typically, they're on a 10-year rotation, but we have extended those the last couple of years.
Yeah.
Historically, they always try to replace 2 a year. A few years ago.
Did you pose the question to Kyle or Doug's?
Yeah, and there's a lot more that goes into it. Yeah, there's a lot more that will go into it other than just snow plows. We've got graders, we've got loaders. That's the vehicles that we use to move snow out of downtown, out of the city streets to dump sites. So it's more than just snow plow routes. That is a factor, yes, but it's just longer time to remove snow from those key areas as well. If we have less equipment, it'll take us a little longer to get things done.
So do we trade the snowplow in, or do we sell to a smaller city, or what do we do with the old?
We sold the last one. I can find out. I don't recall the top.
And to dig deeper, question would be, how much does it cost each person for that one truck in the city? How much would our taxes go up to keep, do you know what I'm saying? One truck. Like, is it $3 for each person? Because then it's probably worth it. Is it 20?
$200,000, 1% increase on 5 year, right?
So
Roughly.
how much is that for
That's $3.
$3 a month?
$3 a year.
A year. So I pay $3 a year to have. Well, when I mean
28 minutes.
to have it flown insane. And it's just not, yeah, as Kyle said, it's just not a truck that is used for snow plowing. The truck is used all year long.
It's for tree cutting.
Tree
It's the dump box.
Yeah.
So I argue we should get rid of our tree trimming crews. I haven't started that argument.
What I think I appreciate about Steve's question is we're in this cycle where we're trying to push off those one-time purchases. We're pushing them back year after year after year. This is year 2 or 3 for this. We've talked about squad cars already too. And I think the real problem is in the reoccurring expenses. So either we cut something that we got to cut something that we're currently doing.
Or either we accept that we have to maintain and fund all of this stuff and just say, well, we're sit here, we're going to chip away at the edges and we're going to accept a 15% increase in the levy, or we figure out a way to reduce it. And the way to reduce it is you have to make decisions. Or we're just going to say, well, I guess we can't, and move on. And I'll just go home.
Which is why I think I feel like looking at the general fund too is necessary for this. Like, I'm probably more interested in looking at that than nickel and diamond things in the CIP that we're just going to be facing us in the next year.
Well, what's the biggest cost of one of these breaks down? The transmission, the engine, the hydraulic system? The boxes are going to last a lot longer. The steel's a lot better than they used to be. They don't rust out as much. So what's our biggest cost? Would it just be better off looking at me budgeting for transmission engine with the truck? So if they go out, boom, so that the shell will go to the vehicle.
We need to look at what are the recurring expenses when it comes to maintenance on those specific vehicles.
Probably every department that has a vehicle, they probably update their list on what we're doing. So we know exactly, okay, here it is. Here's best case scenario. Here's worst case scenario. Here's maintenance wise, so we can maintain it for another 3 years before we have to fully replace it.
It should be in your packet.
It should be in your packet under the Public Works Department. They had so it describes the shape is of this truck that they want to replace.
So we'll have this for every department.
The ones that would be replaced this year, yes. Should be pictures of the truck, I believe, in the condition.
Real quick, the overtime, jumping back to the overtime discussion. I'm guessing it's police. Is that
Is it 820?
820? Yes. So if we hired another person for the field, or just somebody, I guess there's 2 questions there, right? There's somebody who's extra that would just fill that role, and then do we need more officers on the ground, I guess, during the day or during the evenings?
That's where it's the call would be more on the patrol end right now for patrol officers to fill
So if we had another patrol officer, that would reduce this $225,000 in 2024.
it can help, yes. But it's like getting a lot of times, schedule people because of training, mandated training, or they have to go do this is required. And you end up falling when you're on your minimums. That's where the overtime, if somebody's missing, so
For most of the overtimes, it's less than $10,000, which it'd be hard to hire a full-time person to cover $10,000 of overtime. For $225,000, you can hire 2 people to fill those roles. Maybe, I don't know what you guys are going to pay these days, but that seems to me that if we hired an additional person to fill that role, in the long run, we'll save dollars. It might not be this year because we have to pair people up, but it would begin to be a fix.
And it can also, it's still like the large cases can play a role too. Because if we have a homicide and there's 300 hours without activity that's going, it doesn't matter. Once that clock starts, you're trying to get it going. So some of that's can be very hard to prevent because it's a ticking time trying to stay on a case. So it can help on the patrol part, but it's not necessarily, for surely, if we had 2 bad incidents happen, that could be a topic. The ideal one is if something happens, it gets wrapped up in a relatively short time, somebody's arrested, that saves a lot of man hours.
And that work can't be pushed upon somebody else in the department or shared.
It depends on the specialty portion of it. If it's like you say, if it's a homicide, if it's, the patrol part is still, everybody gets pulled, like right now tonight, the day crew is still working and the night crew is on because of a whole bunch of search warrants going on right now. So it's just hard when it all comes down and there's 2 or 3 of them happening at the same time. Manpower part.
So Chief, the proposal, the recommendation from staff to reduce hiring those 4 officers that are currently down to 3 is removing 1 salary year from the budget. Is that realistic for what we can expect in real life? Or is it going to be, because again, you were out of the room when I was explaining this, but my understanding from that been told prior is that basically if you don't have that 4th officer here in person working, the overtime to cover is going to eat up that same amount basically in salary. And so it's kind of a wash for the budget.
Yeah, ideally is more feet on the street is going to alleviate some of that is what it comes down to. And like I say, sometimes it's people have to go to training, where you don't have a choice, and that leaves this day, you're at our minimum part. And you try to go, but it's 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So it's a hard window filling everything.
So if we cut you back to 3 officers, or if we cut an officer out of your budget, how's that impact the department?
I think we'll still be maintaining, our ideal would be, we don't know where the school and stuff is going to be at, so it's hopefully that could be a option coming in the future. They would be offsetting part of
The school resource officers?
Yeah.
I was under the impression that the school had indicated
for this year.
What's that?
For this year.
Oh, I was under the impression that they had told the department no for the foreseeable future.
No, it's still not closed door of that portion.
So I'm gonna go back to the scenario 1. And we live with a 2.5% tax change. Keep our CIP at where it is. We're still reducing the police department salary benefits. But we're not making, we talked about how far behind we are on CIP. This would keep us with what we're trying committed to trying to do. That we're going to have to do this every year. I'm just curious if we can live with that. That would be a 12.9%. Right?
That's good.
And to say we want 10, what would we have to reduce to say 10 for then?
Pull that up for you.
Because that's back closer to the scenario 2. That's fine. Yeah. Yeah.
About 775 in CIP. If we're looking at,
775.
yeah.
That's with no more additional funds of the budget, the general fund. Your question. We have no updates on benefit costs.
No,
We're
we're still,
About
we're still health insurance cost.
That the only thing as far as negotiations with unions, that's all I'm saying.
Union negotiations are not being set until November because of business managers' time.
Are we going to 0.88 for paid family medical leave, or are we going to have to go with something?
No, 0.88 would be our paid family. It's the family.
0.79.
Passing half of that on.
Yes.
We are passing half of that on. Keep the goal.
Well, that's the goal.
Negotiation.
I'd like you not to talk about negotiations, though. Jennifer. Please.
So Councilmember Nelson, here's kind of what that scenario looks like. At just over 10.04%. The $775,000 CIP line item.
That still doesn't get us. Not a lot more than scenario 2.
$85,000.
But
It's another $85,000.
yeah. But then if we only did 2 police cars, we'd be closer to being able to do all the others. Waiting for them to look.
Kyle, I got a question. 101, 801, 5280 insurance. I think it's insurance deductible maybe. Is one of these a typo, the 9,100 budget for this year or the 100,000 budget for the next year?
Yeah, so that was a good question. That was the end of the year last year, insurance came in higher than anticipated. So that line item was used to supplement employees' health insurance. So the $100,000 was in there preliminary last year. It was moved across other departments back to the $100,000 insurance deductible. Our deductible is $200,000 per incidence. Aggregate, excuse me.
Health insurance.
The insurance rates came back a year ago higher than anticipated. So that was
Well, and we were in the process of negotiating the base pay scale so that we could get all of our unions on base pay scale that the council had wanted to do over the years. And so this was the carrot basically to get them on the base pay scale. So we offered $1,000 for family and $500 for single insurance to get on the base pay scale. Before that, every union had a different scale. And so it was really all over the board. And so even before I started, this council had tried to get unions on the base pay scale. We were able to get that work done and pass that base pay scale with the council, and then we passed it through the unions. The only union we don't have on it is the Public Works. So that we'll be working on this year.
That one-time thing, or was that?
It was a one-time thing. It ends at the end of this year. And so their rate of insurance will go back to the contract.
Do we contribute to family insurance?
Yes.
Should we?
Decision. Would you like to just contribute? You know, some only contribute to single, and then it's kind of across the board, but
Let's contribute for planning for the individual, spouse, and then family. That typically, right?
yeah, we don't have a +1 in the PEEPS health insurance. They don't offer +1.
Because it's individual, it's family or 2 options.
Correct.
You can exclude as well.
Not in our current, under our current contract with people. Are we looking at that?
Well, we can't change the PEEP contract. That's the contract we're under right now.
Can we get out of that next year?
Well, that's what we're working on, because their health insurance rate went over 20%. So that's what we're looking at right now.
They're subsidizing spouses, they're subsidizing other employers, right? We pay for a spouse's health insurance if they're getting it to their own employer, aren't we subsidizing that employer?
If they are working, yes, I suppose you could say that. I can't answer that because some of our employees may be married and maybe their spouse is carrying the insurance and they're only in single player.
What's up? Yeah, we should, other employers can subsidize it. So it's great for them.
So each year, there is money that's left over in CIP from 2 or 3 years ago. Okay. And I know there was a way where it was just sneaking back into the budget kind of thing. Do we know what we have left over that we haven't spent in for is it 3 years that we hold it? Yes. Do we know what that figure is?
Yes.
Yes.
Is that something that instead of putting that into the general budget should be used for a new CIP versus subsidizing our budget?
That's the conversation that we would be having with the auditorium and the library roof, to use the auditorium funding for the library roof.
No, I'm not talking
Well,
about
that's the one.
that fund was designated for the
Well,
auditorium. I'm talking about money that was in CIP. We put 200,000 and we only spent 150 and there's 50,000 left over. We hold that for 3 years. That's what I'm talking about, not money that's been designated for something specific.
Isn't all the money that goes in the CIP designated for something specific?
Yes.
It is, yeah.
Yes, but we actually voted to hold that money for the auditorium. And if we don't use it in a certain time, then it's always just added to the bottom line as part of the operations, right?
Well, I'm not following what you're saying up here.
No, it's not added to the
Pile
operation.
of money to CIP fund.
We've had $200,000-$300,000 that have been used to balance the budget. That was money that was set aside for CIP 3-4 years ago.
That would be set aside in the CIP, set aside for a specific reason.
Yes, it was, but it was set aside for CIP, and maybe so an item instead of costing 200,000 only cost 150,000.
I see.
So the money was dedicated for
Okay, that makes
CIP.
sense to me. What you're saying.
Then why don't we use that 50,000 to do new CIP versus putting a cushion on our operating
So the
costs?
third question is, what happens to the money when we spend less than our budgeted amount? Does it stay in the CIP fund or does it get rolled back into the general fund?
It's
Really
currently,
what you're asking?
Yeah, that's basically it.
What is it?
it's in the CIP fund still.
How much is there that is unallocated essentially?
Right now, it would be the Blue Line Arena, the installation that's part of the back page of CIP, $156,000 is we're scheduling to use, because it's now unrestricted, unallocated because of the year it was 2022. So we're proposing to use that for a 2026 CIP project, to use that money in
And
Is that
we
the old
talk
money?
about that sometimes where like something will cost 150,000 and only have 125,000. But that department still had money left over from something else they did, so they subsidize that to do that.
So outside of the Blue Line Arena, the old insulation or the current roof and insulation project, we're proposing to use those leftover dollars per se.
I see.
And then there's really not much left. The larger ticket item is older or allocated was the auditorium dollars that for the potential library re-roofing project. Otherwise, it's pretty much still under the charter allocates it for 3 years. The code allocates it for 3 years. And then after that 3 years, after it was allocated, it can become unrestricted or unallocated. And then council can reallocate it somewhere else. Or it has not in the last 2 years gone back to the general fund to subsidize the.
Thank you.
So we're gonna get 1.4 in improvements. We don't have to.
Correct.
Because we have left.
Yeah, so that would be
Fine.
like on a grand total line would be the total amount of projects, but then the net would be the actual dollars allocated from the level. Yep, sorry. Yes.
Cool. Good question, Audrey.
It'd be fair for us to go through CIP items, figure out around like just a consensus of where we're at as a council, where these items. And the CIP, and then we come back and talk about operation budget, what we're comfortable with for a tax rate. Kind of like I feel like
I want to figure out if there's an appetite for cutting anything on.
that's what I'm trying to figure out, because I feel like staff wants us to give them a little bit more direction about where we're okay with all of this. It's a good conversation, but I'm trying to work us towards
So should we also be looking at what the original CIP was when we were not happy with how much is there? And we said, let's do $1.1 million before we start cutting from what we have here to look at what the other needs are going to be next year that we're not.
So I thought you wanted to add to the $1.1 million.
No,
You're just thinking about like that there's a lot more in addition to the 1.1.
right.
I agree with you.
The balance for 2026 CIP, if you go to your books there, under the CIP, it starts at 3.7 million, was it?
Yep. We've already cut 1.1. So
This is where I just feel this is where the cuts come from.
What's left, you mean?
Yeah. You know, I guess maybe the questions really come down to, are we interested in, Steve's original question about the snow? Are we interested in going down and having staff work on what it looks like to go down to 10 snowplows? I think it would be interesting for Chief Holmes to tell us how he feels about 2, 3, or 4 new squad cars. Is that the only questions that we're really talking about at this point, or are there other items?
It's not a lot, but it adds up to 480,000 is subscriptions and memberships. When was the last time those were audited and looked at? I go through and I make sure that I'm not personally subscribing to things I don't use or need or things like that. And so I guess there's, 20 some different line items here. Just in each category, there's probably 20 sub-line items within there as well.
But I think you guys did look at that. And part of a lot of that is our new computer system, our new software. I mean, we had that conversation one other time.
It's all.
And we cut our child off. Because there are some modules that we have not, that we are not going to implement, so we have cut that back.
So good.
And then the League of Cities is in that, the National League of Cities is in that. Those are our largest ones. The Coalition of Greater Minnesota City memberships are in there. Our memberships for GFOA, which is like $50, memberships for MCMA is $50.
Yes. And it all comes down to it. Do you want to keep all of your employees or drop a subscription? Is how I'd ask that question.
Well, so you want to grab
your IT stuff too?
So,
some of the
yes,
subscriptions are also continuing the education organizations too. So all my building inspectors, we have to pay a fee.
yeah.
Yes, I believe I didn't know those same line.
some of it's under subscription, some of it could be under licenses for specific IT stuff. For say like Windows, Microsoft 365 is maybe under the license line, but some of them live under,
Just kind of depends on what product it is.
We have a lawyer full-time on staff.
Yeah.
$460,000 for the budget for people.
You could cut that by not having the lawyer at council meetings. The cost to review, I can't pull it up. But lawyer reviews our agenda every time. That can be anywhere from $900. You pay the $900. Then they come out. $300 of travel.
So get that on Zoom instead.
Yes, it'll cost, but
It's a while.
it's a little, it's difficult,
$200 from very well.
but you want to provide me if I'm wrong, can they see everything that we share on Zoom at the county building?
I believe so, yes. It's just a difficult step in that from, because it's not ours.
I'm sorry, we've had a lot of complicated things, and every time we don't have an attorney there, we usually get ourselves in some sort of trouble. I think they need to be there. Yes. Yep. Yes. And we have budgeted now, like when our attorney works on a project or our attorney works on some specific thing. So that's being divided out now versus being accounted for with just the city. Yes.
There was just one line item.
Yeah.
In previous, that's we now divided up between departments.
So the Anderson firm, what do they get per hour?
That's his.
250 a year.
I'll check with the county to see if they would take it over first.
We did put it out an RFP last winter, for prosecution services, and this was the only response that we received.
Sometimes you gotta go and ask them personally, because they were gonna do it 1 year,
Okay.
$75.
So you mean the county attorneys?
They're
For
all
prosecution, for criminal.
Yeah.
No. When does our contract end?
A 3-year contract, so 2027.
Chief, how do you feel about squad cars? Currently, we're set aside money for 4. We've got a proposal to look at 3. There's been some talk about 2.
Yeah, I mean, there's a little wiggle room there. We're trying to get the most life out of everything, and we're just cycling out a bunch of them now. And we've had a real slow time getting some of the new stuff outfitted. So it's been our one big hang up, and now it's finally coming back in picture where we're getting like the 2 that we got this year. We just got one, the first one now that's ready to be used, and the second one's still getting outfitted. So it's really has been slow on that process. And I think if we had the CIP, we could look at for the police department, when we say squad cars are like the bus thing where we showed you how that's 199,000 miles on it. It's kind of at the end of its line. If we have that CIP, it might give us a chance where there's actually money to maybe even go out and look at finding something used for way lesser money that would buy us 15, 20 years that way. If we had that money to go on, would be rather we don't need a new one that's going to put 10,000 miles on in 5 years or maybe even less than that.
All of your cars used every day?
Not all of them. There's some that can tend to be broke down. I mean, there's a lot of times if you go by the city garage, you're going to see 2 or 3 of them there. Sure. We're having different issues with some we had a new car that was the 2021 that they get it in for a warranty recall and they won't give it back to you because they can't get the parts. So you're out of the car for 4 months, which is just bizarre. So we've had issues on that. And we have, like I said, we are very frugal on trying to get the miles. And we just put the first one, 2018 Colorado's on the Minnesota mid-state bid is what it's called. So we have that listed right now, and that closes tomorrow on the first one. So it's going to be, rather than we're not getting a whole bunch of cars forfeiture wise, this will be a different way for us to move them. So we'll see how that goes. That's what the county's using, the same system, and they've had good luck rather than wait for 15, 20 cars and try to do an auction. And I think that's kind of a losing deal with the cost portion of it, where this will have a much smaller thing. But the one we're selling, works good if you drive slow. Just don't accelerate hard because it pops into neutral. And the city garage is very sick of that car or that truck.
You guys need to drive fast to your point.
For somebody who likes to drive slow,
How many cars do we have left versus the rates that we're going to?
how many do we have total?
I'm just curious how many cars
Oh, cars with the fleet.
Cars versus SUVs.
We've only got a couple cars left. We have one Impala left that's a 2010 that has like 70, 75, 80,000 on it. And then we have a couple of our vehicles are forfeiture ones. So our other car is a Camry, which we use for trading and different things. And that's getting the miles racked up on it. So car wise, and then we bought two Dodge Chargers. So that was the last. I mean, they just got moving. So I think they don't have that many miles on them.
Miles is one thing, hours is another.
Right. And we just had the one that we're getting rid of. That's on the auction right now. We took one of the K9 cars because it's the CSOs who lost a vehicle out of the deal. So we took one of our K9 cars that has not necessarily higher miles, 110 or 12, but it's got a lot of hours on it because the K9 cars never shut off. So we switched that. That's now being used as a CSO vehicle. It's hard to get. A lot of the officers weren't really excited to jump into one that smells like a dog that lived in it for 8 years.
So I was talking with the chief a little bit before the meeting tonight. I did my my ride along in response to Tom doing his ride along, right? And so one of the things I learned on Friday night is that the department has a SWAT robot that it will throw into rooms to clear when the SWAT team's out. So, officers aren't, peeking around corners, but rather the robot will go and they can clear the room and know what's in there before they go in. That currently is about a decade old. The battery life is failing on certain missions, so they're going to it's the entire operation. And I was asking what would the cost of the new robot?
So I did some research when I was driving. So we are getting a refurbished. We have a loaner right now, and then they're going to refurbish the batteries that we have on that unit. A new one is right around $18,000, but the new model is still the same technology of what we have right now. So there's not a change. Just talking with the other SWAT leader, he goes, I would still hold off.
Okay.
For a year or two, because we use a lot of the drones too. And the drones are, that was $1,500 for the small one that you put in versus an $18,000. But you kind of use both. We'll come through a window if they come in and we land that, so it's our eyes. And then the throwbot is a whole other tool where we're trying to avoid sending officers into that corner room until the robot goes in and doing more call outs and stuff in that nature. And then we also have a mutual owned one with the county and us that we got from train derailment, the Raymond one, which is a really expensive robot as well, that they all have their different uses. So
But waiting for this one to get repaired, it sounds like is.
yeah, we have a loaner, and then ours is going to get new batteries and refurbished. So I'd say see what the technology, because some of the stuff is changing so fast. Or 2 years from now, might be something really good out there. Hopefully it's cheaper.
You're not going to give us a solid definitive answer on 2, 3, or 4 spots.
What's that again?
2, 3, or 4 spots. You won't give us a solid answer on what you want. Well, what you need. What you want.
I'd like to see that room for 3. I think we can get 5 if we needed a cut. But I'd like that power of having the money in there where you can decide, like on the bus, to see, because you can't go shopping for anything used, because if I see one now, I'm like, okay, here's one for $40,000 that would work. I have to, by the time I come to council and ask for the money, and if it's not there, it's not there anymore. So I just would like to have that power of that portion of it versus saying, well, a new one's $195,000. I don't feel comfortable saying that we need a $195,000 bus or $150,000 bus.
So do you still have a policy where some officers can take their vehicle outside the city limits?
Yeah, we have a directive on that.
Because that was from the former chief.
Correct.
Okay. Why is the reason they can do that?
It's from the former, and that's something we're going to be bringing up with you guys. So
I know I talked to Leslie a couple months ago. Haven't heard anything. So.
Yeah, we were just talking about it. It was going to get presented.
Yeah, you drive to another town and see a Willmar police car on the drive. It's great for that community for safety. It's not for the citizens. We never authorized it. The council didn't.
It's up for review right now, right?
Yeah, so
We're working on numbers.
Last year you went down from 4 down to 2. It's correct.
Leslie, why would you need to work on numbers? Either you do it or you don't. You drive your own car or you drive a police car. So why are you working on numbers?
Well, if you would like us to give you a complete answer to it, we would need the numbers to go along with the number of hours that they're actually taking them out. Because they're not always going out every night to a house either. So they're within town. And also
With us outside of the city limits. It's fine if they take them home and if they live.
well, see, that's what we need to, because so you have council give that directive.
So, okay. I would just say drive your own car to work and drive it home.
Maybe I do that fire too.
Yeah, well, I'm just saying.
Our firemen don't.
I see
fire
flag
chief.
SUV parked in.
That you can.
She and the assistant chief get to drive theirs home.
That's her responsibility.
But I just would, so to me, there would need to be a reason why they would leave their car at home.
response to.
Yes.
Is it a response?
Yeah,
If they
it
get
is.
called,
It has, I mean, when they have them, it's when they're on, they're 4 on, and they're 4 off. So the officers, like last Friday night, I'm just going to use that as an example. We had a shooting at 5:51. So for the paper to put in the news story, but that's like the worst time for anybody to do a shooting because you have full crews there.
Yeah.
Because the night crew has already come in, so it worked out really good and helped solve all that. So it's the time, and when you're short on the patrol part, that's your game, because a lot of times if we're behind a couple calls, 2, 3, the night car or flip up the day car is already taking calls as they're trying to, relieving your other people and not seeing the overtime, because if they're clearing, they're not, they're staying in the car and they're going, they're not seeing where somebody's always here for 15 or 20 minutes. You're not seeing that portion of it. But as far as the relief when it's busy, it's like anything. You never know what's going to be busy what day of the week, but it is awfully nice for that.
You have a time that you can relate to as far as response. Because otherwise the officer has to come into the shop, pick up a car. What kind of time is cut off on a response if they have the car?
Oh, it's, you know, it depends. Like a lot of people aren't that far away. You're going right to it, you know, so I mean, your car is ready. You're coming to the office, you still have to get that car fired up and get the frost off if that's frost. So there's obviously a time delay and will it start, and all the things. But it's definitely made for more coverage, you know, on those different time frames.
A lot more to understand than just don't drive your car home.
Right. Yeah, and it's the same when there's SWAT calls and times where it's, you know, get people, you know, here faster, they have stuff.
I feel like the chief and city administrator run over the consequences, the helps it gives, and the cost. Let them come back direct message.
So to clarify, Chief Palmer, you'd be okay with 3 cars, but you'd like to keep that money so that if a bus comes up.
I'd like the flexibility of,
So keeping the 4 cars in the budget.
4 would be ideal, but I'm, you know, willing to, we've had such a delay on some of the cars, you know, getting them outfitted where we have some that are just going to have to go by.
So if we just gave you a $200,000 vehicle allowance and you could spend it however you desired.
Yeah, I think that would be, I mean, you know, like saying I would still be pushing to try to get as many cars, or which is the correct way, but I would love to have that power of finding the bus where the 99. That's the AC doesn't work. I mean, there's AC works when the truck's running, and you know, there's just different issues with it. It's kind of command center. I think we definitely go up in 20 years and have a lot nicer rig.
What kind of bus are you looking at?
Well, like you've seen the one when we have it, right now we have an old CC3 bus, or what it was called before.
Yeah.
And we've had that one. So it has a roof unit, AC. It's kind of like a command center. It's also where the SWAT team will go on. And we use that. So we also have a armored Humvee that's a turret that our SWAT will use. So you can't ride all the SWAT members on there if that's rails. So we usually have everybody go on the bus, and then we'll stop a block or so before, and then the team will get on the side of the Humvee, and that's the deploy to it. So it also works. It's kind of our command center with tools. So that's what we're looking to get right. And it can be used at different events. You know, that's how we used it at Sunshine. It used to be out there, and that was their go-to for the police, where you could set up something and have a flag on it.
So then, at us work out okay for you?
It did, except for now. I know where you're going to go with this question. They're driving them to the ground. So they're like, you don't want to buy one. That's where we were at. So that's why I would rather see the power of maybe Kubi has something, or somebody else has the right bus that has 60,000 miles on it, or 50. And it might only be 3 years old, and it might fit just perfect.
I know they just got 4 new buses.
Yeah. And
I'm not sure how bad.
And that's kind of what we were told when we were asking. Like, they weren't standing behind like you probably want to buy them.
Because we took one for the NBC tour. Oh, that was pretty bad.
That was tough, wasn't it? Spoiler.
So this one, when you can see the ground and there's step on the steps, and there's.
Yeah, we saw this bus, right?
Yeah, I brought it. Yeah. And it's, like you say, it's been, the PD has had it as long as I've been here. So it's been around since probably 06. It's showing all the sign of age on it. Because the first 5 years, I'm sure it went 6 days a week or 7 days a week. So.
Should be no turn to get one from them. So
Yeah. Yeah. But I mean, I've looked online and I've priced brand new, and it's like, I'd have a hard time saying that, we should spend 150, 130 and custom this for $200,000 when we're not putting that many miles on it. I think that's the right cost. Like as we got the other one, the outfitting on it was done by City Garage. They put in the different cages and our accessories to it. Way more reasonable than.
That's going to be up for like our 200K vehicle allowance for the PD then for next year. It's 11K more than what's listed and not should be in this scenario too.
I don't give a fuss. Well, okay, fuss, what?
No, but it gives them flexibility to buy two squad.
Yeah, see, and if we don't find the right thing and it's not going away CIP, where you can work on that holding part and maybe the next year you have to go. So I think, like you say, I'm just looking at.
Now, what's the following year you're looking at? 4, 5, 6 cars?
Well, our squad cars, as far as the SUV portion, seems like they've definitely held up more than what back in the day of Impala. We had Impala, and they just kind of grenaded at 100,000 miles for a squad car. So the other ones, we've been able to get a little bit more miles out of them. And we kind of playing that with City Garage and what they think on some of them. And you can see some of the issues of COVID card not as good as I call them COVID because stuff in 21 and there's some really weird things with it where some of our 17 and 18s were better.
It did work for the city. The positions, do we have budgeted, I should. Yeah, but
What's that?
how many positions have we budgeted for
What?
In the city, how many jobs have we budgeted for?
Like what kind of, what's 50?
110 full-time employees,
And part-time.
usually.
100?
Do we have right now?
We have 4 PD, 1 in the planning department. And our public works director, so.
It's 113 that includes wastewater.
And 13 full-time.
Yes.
And then we're short 6 of full time?
Yes.
Which ones could we eliminate any of them? I know public works.
We would like to revamp the one for the planning department into a planner instead of the Main Street coordinator.
We don't have a Main Street coordinator right now.
We're not planning on having a Main Street coordinator either, but we
So do we eliminate that position then?
we would like to have a planner in that position because that would support a lot of other work that we're doing with the comprehensive.
What's in Christopher's department?
Okay, so we have 3 inspectors, administrative assistant, and planner, city planner. The position that Administrator Bellinger is referencing is a draft position, but we just had a score, so it'll come in right on par with the Main Street coordinator position salary-wise, so around the 50 to 60,000. This position is basically structured around implementation of the comprehensive plan and also like more of economic development based on certain geographic locations throughout the state. So this person would essentially be going after business for the city and having developers coming here. So it's almost like an investment into increasing revenue for our department.
Well, don't we have, Candy EDC and, Chamber and other factors that are doing that position right now?
They are not. No, they're not. I could perhaps provide you all with a draft job description of it. And through that job description, you'll be able to see that this person is basically building relationships with our downtown businesses and making sure that resources are kept here in Willmar. And for zoning regulations or anything like that, Christopher Frank, which is our city planner, he does a lot of the responding to applications that we get. This person will be going out to drive business to the city
just downtown businesses or all different?
It'll be geographically in certain areas. And so we're working on some overlay districts with a heavy focus there, but our industrial park will be part of that too.
Tom, could you run a scenario for me just to math? So if we keep the traffic replacement, and then in my $200,000 PD vehicle allowance, that's adding another 11,000. So I'm adding 121,000 back into CIP. Of scenario 2. How much do we need to cut to get us a 0% tax rate? No change to the tax rate.
Is the county going to increase the value of all your property?
That's right. Well, I don't know if the county is going to increase the value of all your property. But yeah.
Trust me, they will.
So while you're waiting for that, it takes 6 to 7 hours to follow the entire city.
6. Okay.
And if we lose one, then you could probably add 1 to 3 hours on the end side, depending on the routes.
So we lose 1 out of 11, so that takes 3 more hours.
Depending on the routes, yeah.
Well, when we first started putting money in for the city hall, it was 500,000. We got it up to 627 right now. That's what we took that $122,000 away from that, brought the city hall down $500,000 back down where the original started from. Tend to be a wash there. And I know we need it. I've advocated for one of the increases of it to go up while we're in less money, but after year, after year, after year, now we're seeing double-digit increases. This time we have to make cuts. And City Hall is one of them, Leslie. Yeah. And I know we're pulling the money out to fix the elevator, get it up to the standards out of this money. But right now, with the way the prices are and everything else, I think we have to lower that. So we still have 20 years later on to add on. We're closed. But they're we're going to have City Hall. You know, I've been on calls. I think there's been 8 different locations we've talked about. At least. Already we looked at it over the years. So, you know, we're nowhere close to be putting that on there. You know, I'm getting that built.
I'm looking at the old CIP plan for 2026. There's 43 items. It looks like they're actually listed here, the numbers. Out of the 43 items, have some of them already been checked off, or are they already funded, or are we actually only funding 2, 4, 6, 8? 0. Okay. Well, no, because the traffic lights are up here, the wildfire. So there's oh, sure. Okay. So Eagle Lake panel upgrades are getting funded through wastewater treatment. So we don't have to worry about those.
Correct. The list supplied tonight would be the cash options only, and what staff and the mayor had gone through of our priority projects for next year.
The elevator and the fire alarm panel for City Hall, I thought we were funding that through a different source other than
cash. It'd be under the City Hall already levied dollars. Correct. So that will be essentially
2 and 3 are getting
completed. Okay. Just not via the CIP. Right. And the answer to Mr. Osk's question was another $245,000 roughly after adding in those requests to CIP.
Where I would be at personally, we work towards a consensus, would be to ask the staff to come back and cut $245,000 additionally out of the operating budget. And I appreciate Tom's suggestion of City Hall. Again, in my mind, that's a one-time expense, and we continue to go down the line with I think more weight that we can carry on our ongoing year expense. We're cutting for the operations budget. I'd like to see that.
So,
Well, I also like to see that through that even in household.
okay, so
Maybe we lower the tax rate this year. That was some.
scenario 2 is cutting 178,742. What's the figure you want in addition to that?
245.
In addition to it?
That's correct. It's a 0% tax rate. And I want to find.
Well, adding in the traffic light and
The extra $11,000 for the police department vehicle.
3 cars plus
Plus 11 grand. That's the flush fund. It's like
the bus flush.
So the capital would be about 810. And then, yeah, total from 690 up to 810, including those adjustments.
Yeah. Guess it's a little bit closer to what Steve suggested is that 1.1, which would be great if we could be there.
So tell me again what the figure was that he's asking for, and that would need to come out of operations, salaries and benefits, basically.
Open positions that is not filling.
Yeah,
Is that-
so currently, I'm just gonna share my screen. Walk through it this way. So as is being discussed. Right. So this is just updating here scenario 2. So we're reducing this number by 241,000. Approximately 240 to 245. We'll get the final dollar amounts here. Increasing CIP from 690 to 810. Gets us at a 0.004% tax.
Well, if you brought down the city hall now down $500,000 to 775.
And put it back in operations.
No, just leave it out. Just if they're doing like that.
I want to see it back too.
So we would be going backwards in our tax rate.
Well, we gotta leave it in there for 3 months to fund the fire alarm panel and the elevator.
We already got it.
Okay, now put it back, put that rest
We've
of
been
that
having
money
about
back into
500
operations.
$50.
What would we be reducing operations?
So it'll be 127,000 from city hall.
He's asking to reduce city hall, so it's not using city hall. It's reducing the amount we're putting aside this year.
So if I'm following correctly, so starting, we're removing 241,000 from the operations budget, but then adding back in 187,000 from the CIP levy, the city hall levy.
Should be 127,750. So it'll be 127.
Oh, I'm sorry.
750.
0% tax.
But so you're talking about reducing operations by how much now?
120,000 roughly.
In addition
to the 178.
Yeah, in addition to the 178.
Yeah.
I would just note that while 500,000 is a lot of money for a CIP levy, it would not cover a debt issuance cost of a $10 million project over 30 years. So, but just so you're aware, I mean, that would have to, if a city hall, if a project is bonded for 10 million, that dollar amount would need to come back.
So another question, I guess. And I am not suggesting we cut this position at all, but when Pablo's position started, it was a grant, correct?
No. It was a donation. It was not a grant.
Okay, so
It was a donation with the understanding that the city would continually have this position and built it into their budget. And that was the understanding.
So where I was going with it was, is there a way that we can get money funded for his position again? I mean, is there anything out there to help cover that human, his title?
So every time that we have we just got another 20,000 from Blue Cross Blue Shield today. And so in accepting this funding of $450,000, it was the understanding that we would build this position into our budget. And so in that regard, if you want to cut that position, then what I'm saying this with all of our other nonprofit organizations that do contribute to the city for projects, they would probably cut their funding out to us too for some kind. So we have 20,000 from Blue Cross Blue Shield that I just got this afternoon. And then we had 18,000 from Southwest Initiative, Google, 2 weeks ago or 4 weeks ago, whenever it was. And we are also working on a Minnesota Humanities grant. And with that, they do fund time. So we're working on that grant right now.
So I didn't mean to suggest cutting out this position at all. Just wondering if there's other ways to fund it.
Yeah, we're working on.
Do those donations pay for his salary? They do, they don't. But this to me is a little bit like the deal with the aquatic center, where we're going to donate you an aquatic center. But at the end, it's going to cost us $264,000 a year to operate. How much money do we take in at the aquatic center? You know, so if Powell's position costs 150, this is nothing personal, Powell, please don't take it that way. But you're saying we're going to lose grant money if we don't have it, and we don't take in how much in grant money.
Depends.
You just listed off like $58,000 grant money. Less than half of his salary.
Then who's going to help with the project that we have?
I don't know where the original quote came from, sort of a donation if we don't.
The original 450,000 came from Blue Cross Blue Shield. And that's after the 5 years of their having somebody in the city looking at the diversity and the community itself and the health of the community. And so they felt that it was important that we have a position that continues having those connections in our minority groups. And so that's what that is. And we also have received, now I lost my train of thought, and that's also, in the past, our Main Street coordinator worked with some of these projects, like the Martin Luther King, our Welcoming Week, our Cinco de Mayo downtown. So that was part of the Main Street coordinator's position to do that work too. So now Pablo has taken on that work.
I know you said you're looking at cutting it. I don't want to go there. Because Pablo, what he has done for the diversity of our community and relationships. You think of the Heritage Fest. I don't know how many of you were there. It was fantastic. It was outstanding. And people were so pleased with it out of the high school. And then there's another big one. But there's more than that that he does. And I've sat with him in his office a number of times. We have to maintain that position that's good for our community.
I have two questions. We talked about a couple of different departments, but how many employees do we have in HR? One just me. So we have no other part-time. No, it's HR. Thank you. Second thing is what happens if we just close the pool for a year? Well, I mean, we've talked about this. And if you're talking about cutting, if you want to cut operational costs, We could do that in one swoop and just say we're not opening pools.
Then let's,
And if people don't, just let me finish. If people don't like that, then let's go raise some donations because this is what it's costing us to run the pool. And I don't know what we made in revenue, even if we said it cost us $200,000 to close the pool and look for some people who might be willing to help us make that sustainable.
I would argue there's no municipal pool anywhere ever made that makes money. It is not.
Carl,
what makes-
I'm not disagreeing with you, but when you're starting to talk about chicken or eggs, what's important? If you're talking about not plowing streets or not doing this, closing the pool is an amenity. Maybe we cut things at the event center. Maybe we cut back on staff other places and we don't do some things. Is that what we want to do? Because I don't think that's right for our community.
But those are the ones that our taxes are funding.
Yeah.
Community center, rec event center, the DOAC, amenities.
And our staff supports.
I see your point. I get it.
Yeah.
Experience tells me that if you shut down the pool for a year, you're going to pay for it because it's not used. There's going to be deterioration.
Well, there's repairs that we were shut down a good portion of this year.
Yeah.
Yeah. That
didn't help.
Didn't help.
And so, you look at revenues, look at how do we get from here to here? But I'm just concerned that we're throwing a figure out that's not doable.
Getting back to the Blue Cross Blue Shield, for Pablo. My understanding was when this came to us, it was on a 3-year grant. First year is 100,000 or 100%. Second year they paid 60. The third year they paid 40. We talked about what happened at the end of the third year, and if we could terminate sooner, not or later, and we could terminate sooner. Now we're getting totally different. I want to see this contract, see what it said, see how it goes, because if you're not being honest with us, you're not being honest.
There was
I recall that we could have terminated it after a year and a half if you didn't feel free with it. Now you're saying part of it is saying we had to build it in. It wasn't like that when we made the vote. That might have affected us how we made it. I want to see that contract.
There was no contract.
I wanted to see the minutes of the meeting and the discussion throughout that whole meeting.
You can go online, and I don't recall.
The city can get this. I am requesting city to get this.
We will give you the date.
No, I want the minutes. Critical information. Okay.
Yes. Right on. Yes, we will get you the date and the minutes.
Okay. And I think everybody in the council should get that too.
Yes.
So they can go through there and see, because what you just said is not, I'm saying what I remember.
I think the only other thing I would say is when it started out, it has transitioned into something different that's needed for our community. And so they're helping us to do something.
My whole point is the story on how we got here. From where
I understand that. So review the story, but then acknowledge the other things that are being done and how we've transitioned from Main Street to some of the other things. And what do we want for our community? Like closing the pool. Sorry.
My question is, cultural diversity, how do you get a budget of 100?
The other expenses that are in their programs that she does. Let's see, is the programming for the expenses, because we have to account for the expenses. And then the revenues are on the other side. That's also an actual salary. What was the actual salary?
Everything, every insurance, set pension, 183.
So now we hire someone to help us in the study and what this pay scale be. Okay. So other communities are paying 150,000 for positions.
It was scored. It was scored, yes. You always have to go through a scoring process.
In the Main Street person was getting 50 to 60.
Yes.
Makes sense.
I can tell you,
Position.
well, I will also tell you that Mayor Kelvin was the driving force on what the scale would be also on that position. Because he was also very, thought that it should be a position as a higher director than somebody that is a Main Street coordinator. Because he felt that strongly about the position.
We should get all our department heads to raise them to be equal.
They are all very much in line to that. So.
Are we getting anywhere? Kind of where we're at then is going back to Justin's ask of trying to find 245 or what was your number?
Yes.
Right, which I think then Tom and Audrey, jump right around.
Yeah, probably all about that.
Yeah, I'm content with where it's at personally. I'm gonna say call down to 500, putting the rest of that back in. Operation.
So then that means no further cuts. If we take that out of,
No,
we still.
just the cuts would be made.
Okay.
Yeah.
Not as much.
Right. And it's just my philosophy, I guess, that comes better as a recommendation from the staff about how they want to, how they want to structure their programming and their personnel, as opposed to the 9 of us sitting here taking shots.
Yeah, they know what they need better than we do.
That's my theory.
No. Just a consensus that I'm guessing that the consensus is that you want the tax rate to be 0. So we'll work on to just get 0. Is that what we're comparing? Okay.
I specified that I also want to see those CIP items, the traffic signal put back in and the money for police. I don't want to get cut from the CIP to get.
Yeah. Well, I understand that. 200,000 for the police department and CIP. But
Oh, that's city hall. City hall.
What department in this CIP? Yeah. Is that so at 1.1 or 8 something?
I think it was
Yeah, so adding.
somewhere.
So to summarize, we're going to add in traffic signal 110. We're going to adjust the police department CIP from the 3 squads up to just $200,000. We're going to reduce the city hall levy to $500,000, take the 127.5 up back to the general fund, and then ultimately get a flat tax.
Yep.
So whatever that balance is that?
So
You're not.
yeah, so I also want to clarify, so then out of the city hall fund itself, reserves, we're going to pay for the electrical panel and the elevator. So we're actually going to only have a reserve transfer of about $350,000.
This current year.
Yes.
Well, next year. Because we're sort of.
2026.
Yeah.
Are we okay with reallocating old auditorium CIP dollars for the library growth?
No,
I thought we were paying for the library with River Falls money.
No,
No, we public works are.
public works.
do we have any more?
Sorry.
Oops, sorry. Do you have any more information on whether the roof is going to be a reasonable figure or?
No,
So we're not ready to make that
we
decision.
were going to have that information today and they pushed it out to next week.
Quick question.
That I think should come back to us when we know what the amount is.
So I should have asked the council meeting, but it was in the consent agenda, so I didn't. Why were the bids so different? I'm sorry, for the public works, pointing and all that. Why were the bids so wildly different?
This is the library room.
No, I'm talking about the
The
public
tuck
works
pointing,
remodel.
the
I mean, they
tuck
were
pointing of the building.
crazy different.
Yeah,
Were they completely different scopes? I know renovation is expensive, but they also did the civic center pretty inexpensive. That's why I was really surprised.
Could be some years. Somebody didn't really want the job. If
I've done bid work like that before. Yeah.
a lot of that.
you're willing to pay me, I'll do it, but I don't.
There's renovation, restoration, completion, everything. I think it's something.
Are we done?
Are we done? I would ask.
You're looking at two answers to Steve's question on the.
I'd like to be outside this as a part of the
Yeah,
consensus.
I'm feeling comfortable with this. I didn't want to see certain things go out. But I think that there's some give and take on every aspect from each side, the CIP, the city hall, the general fund, or general expenses. So it's nice here for each area. I want to continue to see that compromise between all of those different areas. I don't want to see one come back and say we're leaving it the same, and then all of a sudden we're going to take more from the CIP here, we're going to take more from the city hall. So you can see a little bit of give and take from each side of it.
I have one more question on CIP. I think you kind of answered it already, but if we hold it for 3 years,
It's 3 plus, it's the year it's allocated plus 3.
plus 3 years.
Yep.
So have you looked at what's still being held for
Yep.
3 years ago and whether there's anything else we could, because you've done that with a couple of things already.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything else that we can go back and say we're not doing this anymore?
There are the auditorium are the big ticket items. Another one outstanding is the fire lighting. That's a small $10,000. Public Works has some door replacements that just also went through the consent agenda. I don't know if there'll be any leftover dollars there. It doesn't look like it. And then there are some.
Nothing significant.
Nothing significant.
Okay,
No.
thank you.
Yep.
That will be coming back before the council on the 20th.
Yes.
The one on First Street should have dealt with. When that lights up, it's really old and dated.
So, so
Motion to adjourn?
Second. You're adjourned.
Coffee had not dropped out here, but what's in the minimum? That we would put it to do this,
Actually, regularly, 0.587. It's like where we